Today we are in the studio in Asheville, and we're recording one of many symphonic movements for a sound installation that I'm preparing for the Nasher, and a show that's titled The Record.
I first saw the work of David Mcconnell in the small gallery in Raleigh, North Carolina. He created this sound installation out of old phonographs, using old phonographs almost as instruments in a symphony. And each one had a different component of the sound installation. And based on that, I met him and talked to him, and I found out that he had this great musical background. He was first a musician and a producer, and was sort of moving into the visual arts, sort of leaving the music world.
I take the opposite approach to composition than probably the majority of composers. Instead of a premeditated piece of music, instead of sitting down and writing a piece of music, I like to let the piece of music write itself when I'm in the studio. I'll book studio time and go into the studio without even having written any music at all. And I will proceed to plug in the microphones and the compressors and the EQs, and I'll set everything up on different instruments in the studio, and I'll just begin playing. And whatever comes out is what I've got. And hopefully I like it, or a part of it, and then that will lead to the next part on a different instrument, and then the next part, and then hopefully after several hours of doing this process, I have a piece of music that I enjoy.
Now I'm getting ready to start recording a piece tentatively titled, the movement's probably going to be called Out of Tune, and basically I'm just exploring the musical space of tuning instruments. When I go to the symphony, often my favorite part is the tuning of the orchestra. To me, that's often the most beautiful part.
The piece itself is like these old phonographs from the 60s that he sort of turned upright, and he has a great sense of color. I like the do-it-yourself sort of approach to it. Just, you know, find these old phonographs, these old turntables, you know, change the color in some way and liven them with color, but only very subtly around, you know, exactly where the record would be placed. So they almost look like targets in a sort of Jasper Johns kind of way, but then they have a feeling that almost plays on John Cage in his, you know, 33 1/3 performance.
Sound artifacts tell a story that is more related to chance or circumstance or chaos, whereas instruments are usually telling a story that has been written mathematically by the composer. In the studio, you can color and texture the sound with any combination of equipment or tools that you're using in the studio. I prefer old equipment because when you put sound through it, it's kind of like time travel. It takes you back to a different period, a different era. The sound is transformed as though it's from another time because you're simply using equipment, microphones, or sound equipment that is maybe 40 or 50 years old. And so it puts its own unique thumbprint on the sound and colors it in a way that maybe a painter would use a certain kind of brush. That's how I think of the studio tools. I like that era of equipment, and I also like the way that music was played back in that time, which was vinyl. I like the way that vinyl sounds. To me, that's a very pleasing format to my ear. Now it's mostly digital media that people listen to, and digital media translates sound with the use of code, which consists of millions of ones and zeros inside of tiny microchips before it reaches the human ear. So I would just rather the sounds reach my ear through a different process than a tiny piece of plastic, I guess. What's on a record preserves not only ideas or compositions, but you're actually just preserving a sound which probably will never be created again in the same way. Because nothing ever sounds the same twice unless you're dealing with a mechanical device that was built to repeat the same exact sound over and over again. It doesn't have to be difficult. The process of recording and writing music, to me, can be as simple as, cooking dinner. Sometimes I just choose the nearest instrument physically toward me, and that's going to be the next track because it was closer to me to pick up. But it's just music. It's not brain surgery, and I feel like music should be allowed to flow naturally and without difficulty. A lot of people look at music as a complex organism, but to me it's not. It can be if you choose to go that route. And often my work ends up sounding, complex, but to me it's not. It's just, it's a document of being in the studio for hours on end. The sounds become immortal. They become permanent when they're recorded. Rip the skin off of the foil. I've never seen tinfoil with the skin on it before.